The slaying of the Asura Daruka by goddess BhadraKali is covered comprehensively in the text called BhadraKali Mahatmyam, also known as Bhadrolpati. BhadraKali Mahatmyam is part of the Markandeya Purana, which also includes Devi Mahatmyam or Durga Saptashati. The tale of the battle between the goddess BhadraKali and Daruka forms the foundation for prayers, rituals, as well as folk art rituals and dances for the worship of BhadraKali in Kerala, where she is a popular deity. She is also seen as the auspicious and fortunate form of goddess Kali, who protects the practitioners of traditional martial arts in both Kerala and Tamil Nadu. In Sanskrit, the word Bhadra means prosperity or happiness. Chanting BhadraKali Mahatmyam is considered a good remedy for removing troubles and recovery from diseases. Contemplating on the Devi, as goddesses are referred to in Sanskrit, and sharing her story with others brings prosperity, wealth, progeny, health, and spiritual growth. BhadraKali Mahatmyam is divided into 9 chapters and is narrated by Rishi Markandeya to Shiva Sharma, a Brahmin scholar. Rishi Markandeya tells the story of Sudikshna Maharishi narrating BhadraKali Mahatmyam to Maharaja Chandrasenan. Chapter 1. There was once a king called Chandrasenan who set out with his ministers and soldiers for a hunt to Dandakaranya forest. On the way, they came across a beautiful lake where they decided to rest. Tying their elephants to a tree beside a giant anthill, the king and his ministers settled down for a game of dice. Meanwhile, the elephants kicked and shattered the anthill with their stomping feet. Instantly, a horrifying, fearsome being with a huge body and eyes reddened with anger emerged from the anthill. Devouring the elephants with little effort, this being gave a fearsome roar and angrily rushed towards the king and his retinue. Pursued by the being, they ran for their lives and eventually reached the ashram or hermitage of Maharishi Sudikshna. Hearing the cries for help and learning what had transpired, the sage used his divine insight to understand the situation and appeal to the fearsome being. "O noble demon, Devi BhadraKali's devoted servant, I request you to forgive what the king has done in ignorance and release him." Hearing this prayer, the fearsome being bowed to the sage and retreated. "Who is Devi BhadraKali?" the king exclaimed in astonishment. "This goddess must be truly wondrous to have such a strong and intelligent servant. Please accept me as your disciple and teach me about this goddess," he pleaded. The sage concluded that the king was fit to be a disciple and so began his narration of the glory of Devi BhadraKali. Long ago, a fierce battle was fought between the Devas or gods and the Asuras or demons. Upon the request of the Devas who were facing defeat, Lord Vishnu almost annihilated the Asuras with his weapon, the Sudarshana Chakra. At the time, 4 Asura maidens escaped and sought refuge in Patalaloka. Filled with grief and after mutual consultation, they decided that Danavati and Darumati, 2 amongst them whose husbands were still alive, would undertake severe penance to earn the favor of Lord Brahma and save the Asura clan. Danavati and Darumati went to Gokarna and after taking a dip in the sacred waters of Koditirtha pond, practiced severe penance at the Shiva temple situated there. Abstaining from food and sleep and seated amidst 5 fires, they performed austere penance with utmost devotion. Eventually, Lord Brahma, delighted with their penance, appeared before them and offered them boons. Each asked to be blessed with a strong son to help restore the glory of the Asura clan. Granting their wishes, Lord Brahma vanished, and the 2 maidens happily returned to their husbands and informed them of the boons. In due course, Danavati gave birth to a son named Danava, while Darumati had a son named Daruka. Several ominous omens were seen in nature at the time of their birth. Thunder and lightning filled the skies. Dogs howled, the clouds shed blood. Large trees were uprooted, and sacred fires got extinguished in an untimely manner. From childhood, both boys were told of the cruelty inflicted by Lord Vishnu and the other devas on the asuras. Based on the advice of his mother, Daruka undertook severe austerities to please Lord Brahma and receive boons. Consuming only air, he performed penance in the midst of 5 fires in the summer, stood in water in the winter, and in the open during the rains. He stood on a single toe and even hung upside down from a tree branch. Yet, Lord Brahma still did not appear. Angered, Daruka drew his sword and declared he would cut off his head and offer it as a sacrifice into the Homakund, or sacrificial fire pit. As the brandished sword touched his neck, a single drop of blood touched the earth, and Lord Brahma appeared. From every drop of your blood which falls to the earth, 1,000 powerful asuras will be born, he blessed Daruka. Do you wish for anything else? Brahma further inquired. Daruka requested, let me not be killed by any deva, asura, the Trimurtis, or the three supreme gods, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, or humans and other beings like the Gandharvas and Kinnaras. Grant me the strength of 10,000 elephants. Grant me the Brahmadanda and other powerful weapons, as well as the ability to perform Maya Vidyas or illusions. Also, grant me the assistance of the Mantra Devatas Mayavati and Tamasi. O great Father, please grant me all these boons. After granting him the boons, Lord Brahma asked, why did you not include women in the list of those who shall not kill you? Daruka laughed scornfully and told Brahma, how can a woman kill one as powerful as me? Nobody with self-respect would ask for a boon like this. Brahma reprimanded Daruka. You are arrogant. Your death will be caused by a divine woman. When you battle divine women, neither my Brahmadanda nor the power of the mantras will come to your aid. Daruka retorted, whether it is a Devi, a human woman, a Yakshi, or a Rakshasi, none of them will have the strength to face me. I have no such fear and I want nothing more. Satisfied with these words, Brahma vanished and Daruka returned to his brother and parents. They joyfully received him as he conveyed the news of the blessings he had received. He then summoned Mayasura, the Asura architect, to construct spacious and beautiful palaces, gardens, lakes, roads, large houses, markets, places of recreation, forts, and towers. Mayasura thus created the full-fledged capital city of Darukapuram for Daruka. Thereafter, Daruka assembled all the asuras who had previously been hiding in mountain caves in fear of Lord Vishnu's Sudarshana Chakra. They anointed Daruka the emperor of all asuras, and some amongst their number became generals, ministers, and advisors. After providing them with weapons, Daruka marched an army towards Indra's capital, surrounded it, and issued a battle cry. Chapter 2. Hearing this challenge, Indra entered the battlefield mounted on his white elephant Airavata, armed with his thunderbolt Vajrayuddha, and accompanied by an army of devas. Felled by the arrows of the devas, blood oozed from the necks of the asuras, gleaming like a muddy river flowing from the mountains. Seeing the asuras facing defeat, an angry Daruka let loose a shower of arrows, totally destroying the army of devas, who fled and hid themselves. When Indra attempted to cut off the head of Daruka with his Vajrayuddha, Daruka armed himself with the Brahmadanda. Upon seeing this weapon, Indra also fearfully fled with the devas and went into hiding in caves in the mountains. Daruka captured Devalok and confiscated its wealth and rare treasures. The 5 divine trees that granted all desires were plucked from Devaloka and planted in Daruka's own garden. Along with his ministers and vast army, Daruka established his supremacy in all the 14 worlds. He replaced the guardians of the 8 directions with 8 of his cruelest ministers. On his orders, his servants inflicted many terrible acts. Yagyas were destroyed, women harassed, Brahmins tormented, temples destroyed, trees cut and lakes and wells sealed off with sand and stones. His servants even gleefully burnt down cowsheds with the cattle still locked inside. After conquering and subjecting his cruel and unjust rule on all the worlds, Daruka married Manodari, the beautiful daughter of Mayasura. Urvashi, Ramba, Menaka and other apsaras were forced into slavery and made Manodari's handmaidens. Beautiful women from all the three worlds were captured and kept in Daruka's palace as his wives. All other women were made slaves. Daruka thus spent his days frolicking in debauchery and enjoying every materialistic pleasure. Chapter 3. Unable to tolerate the sufferings meted out by Daruka, Indra and the Devas approached Lord Brahma and sought his help. Though appeased by the hymns sung in his praise by the Devas, Lord Brahma explained his inability to counter the boons that he himself granted and suggested that they all seek the help of Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma accompanied the Devas to Vishnu Loka. There, Lord Vishnu reclined atop the primordial serpent Sheshnag in the ocean of milk. They extolled the virtues of Lord Vishnu and appraised him of the tragic fate that had befallen Indra and the Devas. Lord Vishnu in turn suggested that they all approach Lord Shiva, as Daruka's boon made him invincible to Lord Vishnu. On reaching the snow-clad Mount Kailash, the Devas prostrated before Lord Shiva, the all-knowing Lord of the universe, who was seated with his wife, Goddess Parvati, and explained their grievance. After a consultation, keeping in mind the boons given to Daruka, it was decided to create female counterparts or Shaktis of 6 gods. Lord Brahma created a goddess and gave her the name Brahmi. Similarly, Lord Shiva created Maheshwari, Lord Subramaniam created Kumari, Lord Vishnu created Vaishnavi, Lord Yama created Varahi, and Lord Indra created Indrani. In this manner, the Shad Matrakas, or 6 mothers, were manifested. The gods gave weapons and vahanas or vehicles to these divine beings and blessed them. Armed and accompanied by a large army, the Shad Matrakas set out for Darukapuram. The 6 mothers and their army surrounded the capital and let out a war cry that resonated in all directions. Hearing the battle call, Daruka sent a messenger to investigate. Gasping for words, the terrified messenger returned and informed Daruka that 6 heavily armed women leading a large army had called for battle. Daruka ordered his army general Mahakapala to drive away the army, capture the 6 women and bring them to him as slaves. Mahakapala taunted and threatened the Matrakas before attacking them. The goddesses fought the general and his army, and eventually Devi Vaishnavi charged into the midst of the Asura army and killed Mahakapala with her mace. With the death of their commander, the remaining Asura army fled in all directions, and the Shad Matraka and their army raised a call of triumph. Hearing this, Daruka realized his general had been killed. An enraged Daruka sent his brother Danava with a huge army to destroy the Shad Matraka. Brandishing an iron pestle, the fearsome Danava attacked. However, Devi Maheshwari stabbed Danava in the chest with her trident, and blood gushed from the 3 wounds in his body like a river. He fell dead to the ground like a mountain collapsing. The Devas sang praises of the 6 goddesses as they vanquished the Asura army, its general, and Danavasura. Chapter 4. Unable to bear the loss of his brother, a furious Daruka finally entered the battlefield, seated on a golden chariot, fully stocked with weapons and led by 32 horses. He was accompanied by a huge army consisting of innumerable elephants, cavalry, and infantry. He mocked and threatened the 6 goddesses and attacked them with a continuous shower of arrows, but to no avail. He then attacked them with the Brahmadanda, but was unable to vanquish the goddesses, as Brahma had declared that the Brahmadanda could not harm divine women. Even the 2 mantras Brahma gave him proved useless. Seeing this, Daruka asked the Matrakas who they were, their names and their origin. The goddesses informed Daruka that they were the Shaktis of all the gods beginning with Lord Shiva, and hence none of his weapons would destroy them. The wicked Daruka was livid with rage and used Maya Shakti, or the power of illusion, to attack them. Through his power of illusion, Darukasura created numerous demonic creatures, birds, snakes, and tigers, but these were burnt to ashes by the goddesses. Then Devi Maheshwari pierced Daruka's neck with her trident. However, from every drop of Daruka's blood that fell to the ground, thousands of powerful asuras were created until they numbered 1,00,000, making it impossible to kill him. Sensing imminent defeat, the goddesses retreated from the battlefield to a creeper-covered shelter near Mount Kailash. Watching their retreat, Daruka burst into laughter and, contemplating letting the warriors born of his blood roam the 3 worlds and torture all living things. He then ordered them to kill or imprison the gods involved in the creation of the Shadmatrakas, but withdrew the order on the advice of his ministers, who felt it would be too risky. Unexpectedly, sage Narada appeared, and Daruka asked the sage for news of the world. In response, sage Narada extolled the virtues of the universally venerated Trimurtis, thereby belittling Daruka. This enraged Daruka, who insulted the Trimurti and attempted to attack Narada. But sage Narada escaped to Mount Kailash, where he fell at Lord Shiva's feet, singing his praises. He narrated all the atrocities and injustices committed by Daruka and begged Lord Shiva to destroy Daruka with the fire of his third eye, as he had destroyed similar evil beings in the past. Hearing the words of the sage and trembling with rage, Lord Shiva arose, armed with his trident and his axe, assuming a primal and ancient warrior form. Chapter 5. Shiva took on his most destructive and ferocious form as Samhara Rudra. With curling smoke and flames emanating in all directions from his third eye, the magnificence of this destructive form was unbearable to the naked eye. From a fierce fire of his third eye, with the splendor surpassing thunderclouds, a terrifying BhadraKali was born with a ear-shattering laugh that shook the entire world. Her body was as dazzling as an antimony mountain, having thousands of faces, hands armed with weapons, and lakhs of eyes, all radiating glowing embers. As she jumped from Shiva's third eye to the earth, the mountains shuddered, the oceans became tempestuous, and all creatures quaked with fear. Seeing this form of Devi BhadraKali, which had spread across the whole universe, Devi Parvati tried to appease her with comforting words. "Daughter, please lessen your terrifying splendor. You will be given the first place among the Matrukas, as well as all women. You, along with the other 6 Matrukas, the 7 of you, shall henceforth be called Saptamatrika, or 7 mothers, and you will be well known as Chamunda." The loving and affectionate words of Devi Parvati pacified Devi Chamunda, and she bowed to her mother. She reduced her size and had 1 face, 3 eyes, and 16 hands. Lord Shiva called his daughter, who was adorned with the head of an elephant and the head of a lion as her earrings, as well as other bejeweled gold ornaments. He told her that henceforth she would be renowned as Kandekali, derived from his name Kandekalan, and blessed with the darkness from the poison in his throat and his dark radiance as Samhara Rudra. When asked about the purpose of her manifestation, Lord Shiva responded, "To slay Daruka, the terror of 3 worlds, an asura with the strength of 10,000 elephants." Devi BhadraKali replied, "O father, your strength is my strength. In order to kill this asura who is an enemy of the gods, please give me divine weapons, a vahana, military strength, and all the help that I might need." Lord Shiva blessed her with several weapons and a great army of ghost and fiend attendants, or Bhutaganas, to assist her. He also instructed her to make a Vetali, an entity that resided in the forest surrounding Mount Kailash, her Vahana. Gladly accepting all this, Devi BhadraKali set out from Mount Kailash. When she reached the Mahakala forest, Devi BhadraKali met the Vetali, lying exhausted. She asked the Vetali to be her vehicle and carry her. The Vetali told the goddess that she was famished from lack of food and hence did not have the strength to carry her. Devi Bhadrakali promised her a feast of 20 crore asuras once the battle commenced with Daruka's army. Hearing the Devi's words, the Vetali happily agreed to be her Vahana. After bathing, applying fragrant substances to her body, and adorning herself with chains of wild flowers, the Vetali carried Kandegali on her shoulders. The Bhutaganas sounded battle cries and beat war drums. The Devi herself gave a loud call that sounded like the roar of a lion. Hearing this, the Shatmatrakas came out of hiding with their armies and bowed before Goddess Bhadrakali. Together, the Saptamatrakas were praised by the sages. Playing the conch and war drums, the innumerable army of Bhutaganas and Devas arrived at Daruka's palace, and Goddess Bhadrakali let out a battle cry, challenging Daruka to a fight. Daruka sent his messenger to find out the reason for the clamour. The messenger was immediately seized by Nandi, who was standing at the forefront of the army. The Bhutaganas dragged and beat up the messenger and sent him back to Daruka's court with a heavy tree log tied to his neck. Still dragging the wooden log, the agitated messenger described the large army with a terrifying woman standing in its midst, well armed and with the radiance of 1,000 summer suns. On hearing the words of the messenger, Daruka ordered his 8 ministers and his 4-fold army to confront the Devi in battle. A fierce battle ensued with a continuous shower of arrows raining on both sides. The battlefield was a horrifying sight. Hundreds of dead bodies, heads and body parts lay all around. Headless torsos shuddered and dying horses drowned in fast-moving rivers of blood. The Bhutaganas killed and drank the blood of the Asura army as Bhadrakali's army prevailed in the battlefield. One by one, Devi Bhadrakali slew each of the ministers with a different weapon and as promised happily gave her Vahana Vetali crores of Asuras to eat. In this way, Devi Bhadrakali, also called Chandika Devi, destroyed the 8 ministers and their army and victoriously shone in the battlefield. Chapter 7. Before leaving for battle, Daruka initiated his wife Manodri in the 2 divine mantras that Lord Brahma had given him as boons. He advised her to chant them daily with purity and devotion, perform fire sacrifices, and also give offerings to hermits and serve guests in his absence so that he may return victorious. Thus, feeling well prepared, Daruka left for battle with a vast and magnificent army that stretched out like an ocean and whose threatening war cries filled the air, creating a menacing picture. A fierce battle commenced between the armies of Kandegali and Daruka. Devi diffused Daruka's Agnyastram with Parjanayastram, Varunastram with Badavastram, Timirastram with Suryastram, Nagastram with Garudastram, Matangastram with Simhastram, Mahishastram with Ashwastram, Parvatastram with Vajra Ayudham. Each astra that Daruka used was nullified by Devi with the appropriate Pratyastra. Seeing that he couldn't defeat Devi with any of his astras, he attacked her with the Brahmadanda. The Devas, Brahmanas and Rishis were filled with dread, and on their praying to Lord Brahma, the intensity of the Brahmadanda was slightly reduced. Devi Bhadrakali, respecting the Brahmadanda, withdrew from the battlefield and moved to a distant location to recover from her tiredness. As she recuperated, Devi Parvati in the form of Sri Durga appeared and said, "Daughter, killing Daruka is not easy because of the 2 mantras that Lord Brahma had given him. Only if you get them can you succeed. Daruka's wife has been initiated in the 2 mantras. I shall visit her in disguise and retrieve them for you. Till then, you rest here." In the guise of an impoverished Brahmin woman, Durga Devi went to Daruka's wife and begged for alms. Manodri received her with great hospitality and promised to give her gold, clothes, gems, or anything else that she desired. The Brahmin woman replied, "I am not interested in those things. My only desire is salvation. You know 2 divine mantras for attaining salvation that Lord Brahma gave your husband. I also ask this for your benefit." More than one person chanting this together would be even more beneficial. The energy of the mantras will be complete and ensure the victory of your battle-weary husband. Believing this to be true, Manodri revealed the two mantras to the Brahmin woman. Then, claiming she would go to a deserted, undisturbed place to chant the mantras, the woman took Manodri's leave. Resuming her true form, Durga Devi disclosed the mantras to Devi BhadraKali. Chanting the mantra, Devi BhadraKali was filled with renewed vigor. She rushed back to the battlefield and attacked Daruka, destroying his chariot and killing his horses and his charioteer. She also nullified the Brahmadanda. Realizing that his enemy had gained knowledge of the mantras, Daruka rushed home to his palace and questioned his wife. When she narrated the entire incident, Daruka spoke. The fruits of my karma have arrived. Death is inevitable to one who has been born. My end is nearing. He then consoled his wife. Don't despair. You should move to your father's palace and live there without grieving for me. Do not die with me. In the meantime, on the instructions of Devi BhadraKali, the Matrukas and Bhudaganas completely destroyed Darukapuram. Angered and humiliated by this sight, Daruka stepped out for battle again despite his wife's pleas. As he stepped out, he experienced several ill omens. His flag mast broke by itself, donkeys brayed and wolves howled. But ignoring them, Daruka fought against Devi. The battle raged until the Brahmadanda finally slipped out of Daruka's hands. Picking up the Brahmadanda, he taunted Devi. She retaliated by seizing it and breaking and dislocating his joints. Daruka fled from the battlefield with Devi in pursuit. Chapter 8. Finally, a frightened and exhausted Daruka hid from the goddess in Patalalok. Devi BhadraKali, disappointed in not being able to slay him, wondered how she would explain her failure to her father. She leaned on her sword and looked around, widening her three eyes. Then she heard a divine voice saying that the tyrant Daruka was hiding in Patalalok. The goddess extended her tongue across the earth's surface, spread her dark hair to block the sun's rays, and covered her glowing third eye with her palm, thus creating the impression of nightfall. Believing that the night had indeed fallen, Daruka crept out and rested at the edge of Devi's tongue. Keeping a close watch on Daruka, Devi BhadraKali began to carefully shrink her tongue. When he was close enough, she flipped him up to the sky. Just before he hit the earth, Devi caught him in the prongs of her trident and threw him to the ground, piercing his chest. Tears rolled down blood-soaked Daruka's eyes, and his body trembled. Folding his hands, he implored loudly, "Mother, please don't kill me. Have mercy on me." This caused Devi's heart to soften, and she looked at Daruka with compassion. Seeing the change in attitude of Devi, the Devas and sages cited all the misdeeds of Daruka. While singing her praises, they also reminded her that Daruka deserved to be killed, that he would vanish if he were not killed immediately. Lord Shiva had specifically created her from the fire of his third eye for the divine act of slaying Daruka. Failure to do so would result in non-fulfillment of her responsibility entrusted to her by her father. Hearing this, Devi BhadraKali assumed an enraged, terrifying form with fire blazing from her eyes, too frightening to behold. The goddess ripped Daruka's chest open with her trident. She collected all the blood gushing from his body in her skull bowl vessel or Kapalapatra and drank it, roaring again and again in a fiery rage. She ripped out his heart, roasted it in the blaze of her third eye and ate it. Adorning herself with his bleeding intestines as garlands, she drew her sword, beheaded Daruka and started dancing with loud laughter, still holding his head in her hand. Seeing this wrathful and fierce form of the goddess, the celestials fled in fear. The remnants of Daruka were consumed by the Vetali. Still unsatiated, Chandika Devi also ate up all the armies of Daruka. Yet the fire of her anger did not abate. Still in fury, the goddess mounted the Vetali and headed to Mount Kailash, accompanied by the army of Bhudaganas. Watching her return from Mount Kailash and realizing her angry state of mind, Lord Shiva summoned Lord Ganpati and Nandi. He instructed them to assume the form of babies and lie down at the entrance of Kailash. He also told devotees to sing hymns in praise of the goddess to pacify her. The furious goddess, on approaching Kailash, beheld the two infants. Her motherly affection towards infants calmed her down. She lovingly cradled them in her forearms and nursed them. Her anger now abated, she entered Kailash and was greeted with hymns of praise sung by the Devas and Rishis who bowed to her. Chapter 9. This chapter has Devi Stutis that enumerate Devi BhadraKali's greatness, specific characteristics and positive attributes. It details how the Devi helped the world by slaying asuras, her various forms, her powers of creation, sustenance and dissolution, as well as her physical description. This chapter can be recited for all forms of protection and benefits. It removes fear of enemies, accidents, ghosts and spirits. Appeased and pleased by the stutis, Devi BhadraKali blessed the rishis. She bowed respectfully to her parents, Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati, who were pleased with their daughter who had returned after fulfilling her divine responsibility. Lord Shiva blessed her. You have restored peace to the three worlds and destroyed the enemies of Dharma. Go on to live on earth and continue to destroy evil. You will have many devotees who will worship you and be blessed with what they desire. Always be alert to relieve the problems of people. Your worshippers, irrespective of background, will make offerings to you and you will accept them without discrimination. Kandekali asked, will I not be mocked and insulted by people on earth because I am a woman? Lord Shiva comforted his daughter, saying, if anyone insults you, he and his descendants will be ruined. Families will accept you as their clan deity and you shall be worshipped in temples. During pujas and festivals, the human race shall worship you with hymns, songs and dance based on your story. Those who seek refuge in you will be devoid of negativity and sorrow and live for 100 years, blessed with a wealth of children. Those who worship Devi BhadraKali are thus blessed with a long life, wealth and happiness. Maharishi Sudikshana then revealed that with her parents' blessing, Devi BhadraKali came to earth accompanied by the Matrukas and Nandi to the forest where King Chandrasena had been hunting. The goddess performed tapas or austerities in the forest, remaining at the same place, and over a period of time an anthill formed around her. This was the very anthill that was disturbed by King Chandrasena's elephants, and it was because of the grace of the goddess that the fierce being that emerged from the anthill did not kill Chandrasena. Listening to the glory of Devi BhadraKali is very auspicious. Just contemplating on her glory or telling her Mahatmyam to others will result in fulfillment of all types of desires. With this message, Maharishi Sudikshana concluded a narration of the greatness of Devi BhadraKali to King Chandrasena. Shri BhadraKali Charanarvindarpanamastu.